Today we're going to look at what is history. So to start with, we want to take a look at what are 5 significant events that have happened in your life. So in your notes, why don't you take a minute and write down what are 5 significant events that you believe happened in your life, and go ahead and push pause in the video, and when you got those done, push play again. Now that you've listed the 5 events that have happened in your life, I just want to give you an example. If I was to do something like this. So if this was me, the 5 events that, some of the events that I consider significant in my life. Number 1, winning section finals in football twice when I was in high school. Throwing a no-hitter to beat the number 1 team in the state. Graduating from high school. Graduating from St. Cloud State University. Moving to Florida to teach. Moving to Baltimore to teach. Being nominated Baltimore County Outstanding Teacher. And finally, receiving a master's degree. So just to give you an example of selecting some events that happened in your life. And now, as you take a look at your list of the significant events in your life, I want you to consider this. How did you determine which events to include on your list? Were they the most significant? How did they mean that much to you? How did you really determine it? And that is something that a historian has to do when they decide what they're going to put into a textbook. How do they decide what's so important that should go into the textbook? Was it easy or difficult to choose only 5 events to include on your list? Every day something happens in the world. But we don't write textbooks about what happens day by day. We take a look at some of those things that happen and what is so big about them. Do they impact society? Do they impact government? Do they impact economics? How do you really decide what to put in those textbooks? So going back to your list again, how did you list the items on your list? By importance? Chronologically? Think about that, because as you're thinking about that, that's how we're going to look at history this year. We're really going to focus on history this year chronologically. We're not going to take a look at the most important event and then go from most important to least important, or go from least important to most important. We're going to look at chronologically. This year in class, we're going to start examining history, starting with how North America first became populated. We're going to take a look at some of those theories, and we're going to get all the way through looking at the Civil War. And we're going to take, and again, we're not going to look at every single event that took place in American history from populated America to the Civil War. We're going to take a look at some of those significant events that took place during this time. So if we're going to be looking at history, we want to break it down. We want to look at what the word history means. So as we break down this word, what words can you make out of history? So if you really look at this, you can really distinctly tell 2 different words in here. You have his and you have story. The question is, does anyone have a problem with this? And I know females out there, you should really have a problem with this, because it's saying it's his story. So when you really think about it, simply put, history is nothing more than a story. It is an individual story about something that happened. Traditionally, throughout the world, women didn't always have a lot of power. They didn't have a lot of authority. And so it was the men who told the story. However, men and women have a story to tell. So we're going to look at history differently in this class, and probably differently than you've ever seen before. We're going to look at history, and we're going to break it down into not history, because women, you have a story to tell as well. It is his story or her story. That's how we're going to take a look at this class this year. So if you're taking a look at history, her story, it's a story. But what exactly is the definition of history or her story? So in your notes, I want you to write this definition down. It is the study of the past through the discovery, collection, organization of information about past events. So when we take a look at this, so we're studying the past. We're discovering. What are we discovering? We have artifacts. We have pieces of writing. And so not only do we discover those items, we take those things and we're collecting them. So when Columbus came over, we're collecting his journals and other people that may have been on the journey with him. So we're collecting all of this. His first interaction with the Native Americans, we're collecting evidence from the Native Americans as well. So we're collecting all of this, we're organizing that information, and as we're collecting, we're going to study that information to be able to tell what happened when Columbus first came to North America. And so I want you to remember this quote. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So, what does this really mean? If you can't remember what happened before, will you go ahead and repeat some of those same mistakes? Isn't that what we've kind of done in the past already? We had a reason we went to World War I. Did we make some of those same mistakes that we ended up being in World War II? How come our country continues to have some economic problems? Did we go back and look at the past to see what we did wrong in the past, so why we had some economic problems? Did we do anything to fix those? If not, it is going to continue to happen. That's why the study of history, her story, is so important for us to do. We got to remember what happened in the past so we can fix things so it doesn't happen in the future. Now that you've examined the word history, her story, let's look at how others have defined history. So I want you now to complete the worksheet, What History Means To.